states, quote, "And yes, I am here to destroy. I am the intellectual aspect of Kali, the destroyer, of Shiva, of Zeus, the thunderer, and of Jehovah, the flattener of cities. But I am also part and parcel of the creative life force that permeates the cosmos. And upon the ruined foundations of dead and rotten ideologies, I build anew. I construct a better creation with a more solid and universal foundation, one not built upon the mental quicksand of racism, sexism, and chosen people of one ethnicity or another. I build anew atop this foundation that wisdom is found in every culture, race, and creed, and even throughout the cosmos, as it cannot be and never has been contained in one person, one book, one race, or one gender. The living truth cannot be contained by borders and artifice. The universal foundation cannot be chipped away by niggling little forces of racial, political, or religious ideologies that teach separation and division. So she does not want division, she wants the whole, just like the Theosophists. I find that very interesting. Now, in the January 1960 edition of Lucifer Theosophic magazine, N. Sri Ram reveals that Freemasonry and Theosophy are working for world government and the restoration of the mysteries. He states, speaking in Chicago in 1927, Dr. Besant spoke likewise on the world religion or fellowship faiths, the world university, and the revival of the mysteries, these being three practical measures to which the Theosophical Society will devote itself largely during the next half-century. Let us consider the restoration of the mysteries. It is well known among the members of the co-Masonic movement that its work has been faithfully continued up to the present time, and that its number of lodges has steadily increased. Yet it seems to me that we may expect in the near future, when world peace has been ensured at last, still greater changes, or rather an extension of this Masonic part of the work, for we are told that it is destined to further the revival of the mysteries. I imagine that at such an auspicious time, when the inner and outer worlds will have come much nearer together, some of the great leaders of the hierarchy might take part in the outer work of reconstruction and will then become recognized leaders of the new world government, unquote. Thus we get the admission that Theosophy and many elements or lodges of Freemasonry are working for world government and the spread of esotericism and the restoration of the mystery cults. Yes, I'm the intellectual aspect of Kali and Shiva, as Acharya states. That is exactly what the restoration of the mysteries is. Now, I can go on forever providing documentation and argumentation. However, I must now show that Zeitgeist and the Zeitgeist movement is irrefutably and heavily connected with this agenda. Much has already been said, and there is much documentation supporting the fact that Zeitgeist is connected to these esoteric organizations. If you watch my film, The New Age Infiltration of the Truth Movement Final Cut, and if you read my articles on my website regarding these issues at www.kiethtruth.blogspot.com, you will see dozens of arguments and connections that Zeitgeist has to the New World Order. Chris White of nowheretorun.podmatic.com also uncovered many points as well, which are noted in his radio show, podcasts, YouTube videos, Google videos, and articles. However, I only want to highlight two connections in this presentation, and I hope that you consider the points and ponder them intensely for your own benefit. The 2 points are: 1. Zeitgeist appeals to Theosophists and Freemasons and/or those connected with the organizations as objective sources of information. A simple rule of logic is that normally films only appeal to people who support their case or ideology in an affirmative way, or normally people only appeal to people who they are comfortable being associated with if they are using them for affirmative sources as opposed to making an article exposing people. For example, if you cite Helena Blavatsky, the founder of Theosophy's book, to expose her, that is one thing, but if you cite her to support your position and ideology or views, that is another. For example, I often cite people who I can relate to and who I am connected with and comfortable with, like William Cooper, Fritz Springmeier, Randall N. Baer, Chris White, etc. They support my case. However, in this case, Zeitgeist appeals to Helena Blavatsky, the founder of Theosophy, Manly P. Hall, the 33rd degree Freemason who advocated world government time and time again, and who was an early proponent of astrotheology, who placed Jesus as the sun and the age of Pisces, along with theosophy. Gerald Massey, the Egyptologist who wrote for Lucifer magazine numerous times, and who is often highly regarded by Blavatsky in her Lucifer magazine. Zeitgeist also cites the Theosophist and New World Order advocate Jordan Maxwell, and even uses his lectures in the intro. Zeitgeist cites Krishnamurti, former Theosophist who was brainwashed since childhood by Anne Besant, and in whose lectures still have the residue of Theosophic ideology. Krishnamurti retained connections with Theosophy after he decided not to be their false Christ, which was originally planned. They cite the New Age guru and mystery cult revivalist Acharya S. Godfrey Higgins, the Druid and Freemason who is often quoted by Blavatsky in her Lucifer magazine. An example is the November-October edition, page 68. Zeitgeist also appeals to the notorious Freemason Albert Pike and Albert Churchward, and many more. Now, if Zeitgeist was promoting globalization as well as Theosophic and Masonic ideologies, we would expect Zeitgeist to appeal to Freemasons, Theosophists, and people related to them, as if there is nothing wrong with these globalists who are anti-Constitution and thus anti-American. If Zeitgeist wasn't promoting such things, we would not expect Zeitgeist to appeal to people in those organizations, whose objective is admittedly a one-world system. However, Zeitgeist does appeal to these people heavily, so it supports my case. Merely ignoring this fact is not a smart thing to do, especially when the question at hand is whether or not Zeitgeist is connected with these people. 2. Zeitgeist advocates a world system based on Masonic and Theosophic values. I find it very strange that in the Zeitgeist orientation video, the very first thing Peter Joseph says is that the Zeitgeist is not a political movement. It's almost as if he's making sure to say that, because it obviously is.
The Zeitgeist movement is not a political movement. It does not recognize divisionary notions such as nations, governments, races, religions, creeds, or class. Rather, we see the world as one organism, with the human species as a singular family.
If Zeitgeist's vision is the same as its Freemasonic and Theosophic sources' vision, in that a world system is awaited, we would expect Zeitgeist to offer a world system as a solution to the poor conditions that the elite have created right now, such as the economy, social problems, and general insufficiency. If it turns out that Zeitgeist is actually advocating the tearing down of all governmental systems and the concept of the state, which would by default tear down the Constitution and in place erect a one-world system, then that proves that Zeitgeist is connected with this agenda. Does Zeitgeist advocate a one-world system and the tearing down of the state and the country and the Constitution?
Government and the concept of the state will eventually be outgrown entirely and replaced by an objective system of global resource management and technological organization. Government and the concept of the state will eventually be outgrown entirely and replaced by an objective system of global resource management and technological organization. Government and the concept of the state will eventually be outgrown entirely and replaced by an objective system of global resource management and technological organization.
Zeitgeist's whole premise of getting rid of the United States government and the state would entail getting rid of the Constitution. When you advocate the world unification and the abolition of government, that means the Constitution of the United States is gone. In Peter Joseph's automated world system, there is no room for state or government. Thus, since the Constitution of the United States is dependent upon the state, Joseph is advocating the doing away with the Constitution that so many freedom-loving Americans adore. This idea is what the truth movement is supposed to be fighting. The Patriot movement is supposed to be trying to uphold the Constitution as opposed to getting rid of the state, the country, and the Constitution. The Truth movement is supposed to be trying to fix the government and uphold the Bill of Rights, not abolish the government altogether.